You have been lying on your bed for almost an hour, holding your phone in the same position. There is a message on the screen that you know you should answer. It is not even a difficult message. Someone asked a simple question. You could probably respond in less than 30 seconds. But your fingers do not move. Inside your head, a voice keeps repeating, just get up, just answer them, just do one small thing. And somehow, even that feels impossible. The strange part is that nobody looking at your life would call you burnt out. You still show up to school, work, or family events. You still laugh when someone makes a joke. You still say, I am fine, I am just a little tired. You may even be the person others depend on when they are overwhelmed. From the outside, you look functional. Inside, every small task feels like pushing a heavy stone uphill. Taking a shower feels complicated. Making food feels like too many steps. Answering a friend feels emotionally expensive. Even resting does not feel peaceful, because while your body is lying still, your mind is listing everything you should be doing. So you reach for the easiest explanation. Maybe I am lazy. Maybe I have lost my discipline. Maybe everyone else is stronger than me. But what if the part of you that you keep calling lazy is not trying to ruin your life? What if it is the last part of you, still trying to protect you from a life that has already taken too much? Burnout rarely begins with someone who does not care. It often begins with the person who cared too much for too long. Maybe you used to be the responsible one. The person who answered quickly, worked harder, stayed later, and remembered what everyone else forgot. You did not want to disappoint anyone, so you learned to ignore the first signs of exhaustion. You told yourself you could handle it. One more deadline, one more favor, one more night of poor sleep, one more week of pretending that nothing was wrong. Somewhere along the way, endurance became part of your identity. Being useful made you feel valuable. Being needed made you feel safe. Saying yes made you feel like a good person, and asking for help felt dangerously close to failure. So you kept proving your worth through how much discomfort you could tolerate. At first, your body tried to warn you gently. You became tired earlier. Your attention started drifting. You needed more time to finish things that once felt easy. You began forgetting small details. You woke up already wishing the day were over. But you did not call it burnout. You called it a bad week. Then the bad week became a bad month. The demands kept arriving, but the resources that helped you recover did not. That is one of the simplest ways to understand burnout. It is not always a weakness inside you. It can happen when the demands placed on your mind and body remain high for too long, while your access to rest, support, control, safety, and meaning becomes smaller and smaller. You keep giving energy, but nothing truly restores it. Eventually, exhaustion stops feeling temporary. It becomes the atmosphere of your life. This is where the identity split begins. There is the version of you that other people see. The version who smiles, responds, performs, and says everything is under control. Then there is the private version of you. The one who goes silent after getting home. The one who avoids opening messages because every conversation feels like another obligation. The one who lies awake at night feeling guilty for not being more grateful, more productive, or more emotionally available. You begin living as two people. One performs wellness, the other quietly disappears. This is why burnout can look so much like smiling depression or high-functioning depression. You may still be achieving things, you may still be meeting deadlines, you may still look organized enough to convince everyone, including yourself, that you are okay. But functioning is not the same as being well. Sometimes functioning is simply what survival looks like when you have become very skilled at hiding pain. The emotions you do not feel safe expressing do not simply vanish. They wait. The frustration you swallow may become irritability over something small. The sadness you avoid may become numbness. The anger you never allow yourself to acknowledge may turn inward and become shame. You stop saying, I am overwhelmed. Instead, you say, I am a failure. You stop asking, what is draining me? Instead, you ask, what is wrong with me? And the longer this continues, the more your body may begin speaking for the feelings you have been forcing into silence. You may notice headaches that return without warning. A tight jaw, a heavy chest, stomach discomfort before work or school, muscles that never seem to relax, sleep that lasts for hours but leaves you feeling untouched by rest. Your body is not betraying you. It may be carrying the message your mind has been too busy, too frightened, or too ashamed to say out loud. I cannot keep living like this. Then comes the cycle that makes burnout feel like a character flaw. You are exhausted, so you delay a task. You delay the task, so guilt appears. The guilt frightens you, so you force yourself into a burst of overwork. The overwork drains what little energy remains. Then you collapse again. exhaustion, avoidance, guilt, overcompensation, deeper exhaustion. From the outside, this pattern can look inconsistent. One day you accomplish everything. The next day you cannot answer a text. But this is not proof that you are pretending. It is what happens when your nervous system keeps switching between pushing beyond its limits and shutting down to survive them. And slowly, without realizing it, you may begin sabotaging the very things that could help you. You cancel plans with people you love because pretending to be okay feels too tiring. You stay up late even though you desperately need sleep because nighttime is the only part of the day that feels like it belongs to you. You ignore emails until they become emergencies. You stop doing hobbies because enjoyment now feels like another task you need to perform correctly. Then you use these behaviors as evidence against yourself. See, you tell yourself, I really am lazy. But laziness does not usually come with this much guilt. It does not usually make you miss the person you used to be. Burnout does. Burnout makes you remember a version of yourself who could begin things without a battle. Someone who could feel excited, curious, motivated, or present. And the distance between that person and who you are now can become its own form of grief. You may still be moving, you may still be smiling, but somewhere beneath the performance, a quiet part of you is asking how much longer you can survive a life in which rest never feels earned, help never feels available, and your value depends on how much of yourself you are willing to lose. The first sign that you may be burnt out rather than lazy is that rest no longer restores you. You sleep, but wake up tired. You spend an afternoon doing nothing, yet instead of feeling refreshed, you feel heavier. Even vacations can become strange. Your body leaves the routine, but your mind continues carrying every unfinished task, every expectation, and every fear of falling behind. Real recovery requires more than physical stillness. It requires a sense of safety. But when your nervous system has spent months anticipating the next demand, it may no longer know how to switch off, simply because you have reached the weekend. You are resting with your body while remaining on duty inside your mind. The second sign is that this exhaustion represents a real change from who you used to be. You were not always unable to begin. You may remember being the person who completed assignments early, answered messages quickly, or kept promises even when no one was watching. You had difficult days, but you could usually find your way back to yourself. Now, motivation feels inaccessible. This difference matters because laziness is often described as an unwillingness to make an effort. Burnout is different. You may desperately want to act, but feel as if the bridge between intention and action has collapsed. You are not indifferent to your responsibilities. You are often painfully aware of them. That is why you feel so guilty. The third sign is losing interest in things that once made you feel alive. Music becomes background noise. Games feel empty. Creative projects remain unfinished. You stop reaching for the people, places, and activities that once helped you recognize yourself. At first, you may tell yourself that you are simply growing up or losing interest, but sometimes this loss of pleasure is emotional conservation. When your mind believes that all available energy must be reserved for survival, joy can begin to feel unnecessary. It quietly shuts down curiosity, playfulness, and excitement so that you can continue meeting basic demands. This emotional numbness can resemble depression, and the two can overlap. Burnout is not something you should diagnose alone, especially when sadness, hopelessness, or loss of interest continues for weeks. But whether the cause is burnout, depression, or both, your pain deserves attention before it becomes unbearable. The fourth sign is becoming distant, irritable, or cynical. You may feel annoyed when someone asks for something simple. You may stop trusting promises from your school, workplace, family, or even yourself. You begin expecting disappointment, because expecting less feels safer than caring deeply and being drained again. This distance is not always cruelty. Sometimes it is armor. If caring has repeatedly led to more responsibility, your mind may protect you by caring less. If being available has taught people to demand more from you, you may begin withdrawing without knowing how to explain why. But the armor has a cost. It blocks pressure, but it can also block connection. People may believe you no longer love them when the truth is that you no longer have the energy to prove your love in the ways you once did. You may believe you are becoming cold when you are actually overwhelmed. The fifth sign is that basic self-care starts quietly disappearing. You skip meals or eat whatever requires the least effort. Laundry piles up, your room becomes harder to manage. You delay showering, cleaning, exercising, or attending appointments. These changes are often used as evidence of laziness, especially by people who cannot see what is happening inside you. But small tasks require executive functioning. They require attention, planning, decision-making, and the ability to move from one step to another. When your mental resources are depleted, even ordinary routines can feel like complicated projects. You are not failing at being human. You may be trying to function with an empty system. The sixth sign is that your concentration, relationships, sleep, and self-esteem begin deteriorating together. You read the same paragraph repeatedly. You forget why you entered a room. You make mistakes and then panic because mistakes seem to confirm your worst fear, that you are becoming incapable. You withdraw because you do not want anyone to see the change. The withdrawal makes you lonelier. The loneliness makes everything harder. Then your inner voice becomes more aggressive, hoping criticism will force you to move. But shame rarely creates sustainable energy. It creates fear. And fear may produce one final burst of performance, but it usually leaves you more exhausted afterward. Healing begins when you stop treating your pain as a moral failure. Instead of asking, "Why am I so lazy?" try asking, "What demands are draining me, and what resources are missing?" Maybe you are carrying academic pressure without emotional support. Maybe your job expects constant availability. Maybe your family relies on you while rarely asking how you are doing. Maybe social media keeps showing you people who appear more successful, disciplined, attractive, and certain than you feel. Naming the demand changes the story. It moves the problem from your character to your circumstances. Then ask what resource is missing. Do you need sleep that is protected rather than interrupted? Do you need practical help? More control over your schedule? A conversation in which you do not have to pretend? Professional support? Permission to disappoint someone in order to stop abandoning yourself? You do not need to repair your entire life in one day. Begin by lowering the mask with one safe person. You might say, "I have not been doing well lately. Normal tasks have started feeling overwhelming, and I think I need support." That sentence may feel frightening because it makes your private struggle real. But it also gives another person the chance to meet the version of you who has been suffering behind the performance. Then choose one measurable boundary. Turn off notifications after a certain hour. Say no to one responsibility that is not truly yours. Ask for an extension before you reach a crisis. Take one day away from an app that repeatedly leaves you feeling inadequate. A boundary does not need to be dramatic to be meaningful. It simply needs to protect a resource you can no longer afford to lose. And when symptoms continue, interfere with your daily functioning, or begin to feel darker, reach out to a qualified mental health professional. Asking for support is not proof that you have failed to manage your life. It is proof that you have finally decided your life is worth supporting. You do not have to collapse completely before you are allowed to rest. You do not need a medical emergency, a public breakdown, or permission from everyone who benefited from your overfunctioning. Your ability to endure pain for a long time does not mean you should continue enduring it alone. Maybe you have not lost your willpower. Maybe you have been using willpower for too long inside a system that never gave you enough time, safety, or support to recover. And perhaps healing does not begin with forcing yourself to become productive again. Perhaps it begins with believing that the exhausted version of you is not an enemy to defeat. It is a messenger. It is asking you to slow down, listen, and build a life in which you do not have to disappear in order to keep everything else functioning. In the comments, share the first sign you recognized in yourself. Was it the exhaustion, the loss of connection, or the feeling that you were no longer good enough? And subscribe if you want to keep learning how to recognize emotional overload without turning your pain into another reason to judge yourself. You are not lazy for struggling to carry what has become too heavy. You are tired. And tired people do not need harsher criticism. They need recovery, support, and the chance to be